Hello everyone, it's Jennifer Mcguire here, and this video is for Simon Says Stamp. In it, I'm going to show you how to do a fun watercolor resist technique using one of my favorite new products. I'll also be using Simon Says Stamp's January card kit. This is a great card kit with great product, and using Inktense pencils, and I use them to create these two cards. Now if you don't have Inktense pencils, you could use regular watercolor pencils or Distress Ink and Water if you'd like to, but I wanted to show you the pencils here. This is the stamp that comes in the stamp set. It is fantastic. Lots that you can do with this with lots of different looks. I'm using the large greeting that says "You're very special." I like it because it looks handwritten. Well, it is handwritten by Christina Werner, but that way I can use it on a card and it kind of has that handwritten feel like I faked it, which I totally don't have great handwriting like that. So I'm just using Versamark ink, which is a sticky clear ink, and I'm going to stamp it on watercolor paper. Now you don't need to use watercolor paper here, but I highly recommend it because it works much better with this technique. It also gives some fun texture. And I use the Simon Says Stamp watercolor paper. Now I'm just going to take out some white embossing powder. This is the Hero Arts white embossing powder, and I'm just going to shake it on here. Now I'm going to repeat this and do several pieces at once. I might as well since I have the supplies out, and that way I can make a bunch of cards. So now after I have put the embossing powder on all of these, I'm just going to heat set it with my heat gun, and you can see the nice crisp white embossing that you get with the Hero Arts powder. Now to create the color over the embossing, I used Inktense pencils. In previous videos I've showed you how to color in images with them. Here I wanted to show you how to create a background. Now these pencils are really fun and they're very unique. It's almost like a paint or an ink in a pencil form. So you can get really vibrant color with these, and I like to use them kind of as watercolor, but since it's so saturated in color you can get really vibrant watercolor. And I also wanted to show you that you can get light watercolor looks with this too. So if you watch here, I'm on watercolor paper here. You could use regular paper. I'm just very lightly, very lightly adding some color there. I did some green and I'm going to do some blue on top to show you that you can combine colors. So if you don't get a big set with the many colors, you can get a small set and just overlap color to get new colors out of them. Just combine them in different ways. So here I'm going to do the green by itself, and I'll also do the blue by itself. Wait, that's the wrong pencil. Hold on. I'll do the blue by itself here, and you can see how you can get the bright green or the bright blue, or you can mix them together like I did there in the middle to get kind of a teal color. So don't feel like you have to get the big set if you just want to try the small ones out. And you can see here, by doing just a little bit of color and a little bit more water, you can get a softer look. A lot of people have asked because a lot of these pencils look very dark, but if you want to get a soft color, you just use more water. It just takes a little bit of practice. Now if you want to, for better control, you can pick the color up right from the tips of the pencil. You can pick it up from two tips of pencils if you want also to get a mixed color. There's a lot you can do with these. Now I'm going to show you how to do these watercolor looking backgrounds with Inktense pencils. First I want to show you how to do it by picking the color up from the pencil tip, like I was just showing you there a moment ago. I have one of my embossed watercolor pieces here, and what I'm going to do is first just get it very wet with water. I find that this helps to get a soft look with these Inktense pencils. So I'm just kind of saturating with water, rubbing it over it, my fingers over it, so that it's just nice and wet. Now I have water that I'm dipping my brush into. I find that easier to control than putting water in the this water brush. And I'm just picking up the color from the pencil tip. Now you can see that I get a really soft look because there's lots of water here. Now you can also see the little streaks that kind of form here, but as you go over it, you'll see it just kind of starts to blend on its own, and when it dries, it's really nice and lovely. So now I'm moving on to another color. I'm using several colors of the Inktense pencils here. I have the big set because I use them often, so I can kind of go from one color to the next and just overlap there in the middle. Now, you could make this much more intense by using less water, maybe not even put water down on the surface before you start. But I like this soft look here. You can always go back and add more if you want to. In a moment, I'll show you how to get this look if you don't have the variety of colors of Inktense pencils, just using two colors. So I'll show you that in a moment. Now, if you don't have these pencils, you could by all means use watercolor pencils for this, or you could use Distress Ink and water or Distress markers and water. So there are a lot of ways to do this kind of watercolor resist. Now you can see my white embossed image is popping out through this, so you can get a really nice, fun watercolor resist look with these pencils. But again, if you don't have these, you could use regular watercolor pencils. Now you'll see this is very light. Now I could leave it this way if I wanted to, but I decided I want it to be a little more intense. So I'm just going to go ahead and add some more right over top. After zapping it with a heat gun just to make it dry completely, I'm just going back and adding another layer, doing the same thing over it just to make it a little more intense so that that white embossed image will pop out even more. Now you could emboss this after you do the watercolor background, but I really wasn't sure where I was going to go with it, so I decided to do the embossing first. So you can see how much more intense you can get with the second layer here. Now one of the things I think I should have done was just cut a bigger piece of watercolor paper and do a large piece with this technique and then cut it into strips. It would have saved a lot of time. So here you can see that I've added a lot more color and my image has popped out even more. Now after letting it dry or zapping with a heat gun, I've kind of trimmed it down a bit here, and I want to cut the end to a V, but on a piece this big it's kind of hard to do that. So what I do is I cut a little notch halfway through it, right down the center here. You see just a little notch that goes in a little bit, and then I use my scissors to cut from the corner to the end of that little notch. So I'm just going to cut right down to the center. So this is a great way to make sure that your V isn't lopsided by first cutting a little notch that's right in the center. And there we have a fun little banner. Next I wanted to show you how to create this piece here, just some different colors, but by doing it in two different ways. One is I'm going to color directly onto the paper as opposed to picking it up from the tip like I did before. And also, instead of using a bunch of colors of Inktense pencils, I'm only going to use two. So if you have a smaller set, you could use this. So I've started with a red and a yellow pencil here, and I'm just ever so lightly, I mean very, very lightly, adding color to the paper. So I'm just scribbling right across it, and I've added lots of red there, and you can see it's very light. And now from the other end, I'm adding some yellow. So I'm just making it a little bit heavier on the outside and working lighter towards the inside, and then I'll allow the two colors to overlap in the center. Now I've got my water brush here, and I'm first just kind of getting the red going with the water, just kind of scribbling around, and then I'll start going in this stripes back and forth. So you see me going right here back and forth, and as I go I'm picking up more and more red color so it gets more and more intense. And I'll just keep going, and you'll see where the yellow starts kicking in here where I overlapped with yellow, and I'll get the orange area. So just by overlapping you can make it look like you have a bunch of colors, but really you're only using two. So this goes a little bit faster than picking it up from the tip of the pencil like I did before, but I think that I get more control the other way. So really it's something you can play with and practice and see which works best for you. But you can see the nice gradient effect that you get here from the red to the yellow, and you get some orange forming in the center. Now one little thing that a lot of people ask about is when you heat this, it starts to curl. If your paper starts to curl, never fear, just flip it over and heat it from the other side, and you'll see it starts to flatten out a little bit. But you're going to glue it down anyway, so it really shouldn't matter. Now on this piece I decided to stamp the greeting afterwards, emboss it afterwards, because this was just a scrap that I was testing this out on that I decided to use. Now again, if you want to make it more intense, after it's dry you can go back and add some more color right over it and just allow it to get darker. But really it's up to you. Here I just want a little more red, and I thought the yellow was good enough. So I just added some more red, and that's it. And again, you'll start to pick up the color right here at the end, and it'll intensify, and you'll see I kind of go forward and then I reverse a little bit to pull the color back, and it'll all start to blend. So there you got the nice orange in the center too. And then I trimmed it as I did before. Now for the little buttons I used my Hero Arts Shadow Inks. Hero Arts Shadow Inks are a unique dye ink that will first start looking splotchy at first, but slowly absorb and even out in the paper, so you get a nice smooth even stamped image. So I'm using the new Pale Tomato Shadow Ink, and you'll see it's kind of splotchy here at first, but as it dries it'll even out and smooth, and you'll get great results. So it's great for solid images such as these buttons. I'm just going to stamp a few here so that I'll have some left over for other projects. And I'm going to also use the Butter Bar Mid-Tone Shadow Ink. It's another shadow ink for the yellow. And then I'm using a Hero Arts Chalk Ink, which is the poppy color. It's an orange color. And these stamp pretty smoothly right from the get-go. Now for the blue card, I'm going to be using some more shadow inks, the Tide Pool and the Cornflower, and also the Green Hills for the green ink. Now you'll see my Pale Tomato, those first pink buttons I did, look nice and smooth, whereas these Tide Pool I just stamped are kind of splotchy. So those will even out as they dry also. So if you use these inks and at first they look a little splotchy, never fear. They'll end up nice and smooth. Now you notice I've got a bunch of buttons here, and I've noticed actually that the colors that I've stamped in look really nice together. So I'm going to use this as a future reference for a fun color combination. And I have all these buttons pre-stamped. Now, normally you could use a little small circle punch to punch these out instead of hand cutting them, but I'm moving my studio and I can't get to my my circle punches right now. So I'm just going to hand cut these. Now for the background, I'm using this wood grain white cardstock. It's this really subtle textured wood grain cardstock that is included in your January card kit from Simon Says Stamp, and they also sell it in packs too. And it's great for backgrounds because it's very subtle, but it's a little more interesting than a plain white cardstock, and it works great for a note card. Now for the buttons, instead of stitching them, I just decided to use my white pen to draw the little faux stitching on it, and that works just perfectly, just a little interest to the buttons. So I'm going to add these with some foam dots, and you can see how the colors kind of match with the Inktense pencils that I did on the background. And finally, I finished them off with some Hero Arts pearls. So there you have it, some cards using this Simon Says Stamp January card kit along with Inktense pencils. If you have any questions, please visit simonsaysstamp.com or jennifermcguireink.com. Thanks for watching.